and DeVivo, did I say that right? Bus Sales for sponsoring this morning's breakfast. So thank you. First order of business is the annual business meeting where we need to
elect board members.
Board members and then officers, I guess.
This term are because I will tell you that Andrea, after June 30th, will to being a regular member of MEASBO instead of an officer or a board member. So I'm going to make it work.
So the first member, we've given yellow cards to voting members. So just as a reminder, only one person from each school vote, and no vendors are allowed to vote. So if there's anyone who doesn't have a yellow card, please let us know. I'm also going to ask, for the sake of the treasurer, for the person making the motion and the person making the second, to state their name so that Dawn not commit everyone's name to memory as we move. So, is there a? Do you want me?
Yeah, do you want to?
Okay. So the proposal is to elect Mark Bouchard to serve as a member of the board of directors of the MEASBO for 3 years. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make
I'll make it easy for Dawn.
Yeah.
So Kelly is going to make the motion. All those in favor for electing Mark Bouchard for a 3-year term?
Extensions
Okay.
or
Anybody? Any other?
Thank you. Thank you.
The next proposal is to elect Sybil Brewer to serve as a member of the board of directors for a 3-year term. Do I? Thank you.
Second?
You're moving this along way too quick. Okay. Everyone. Okay. Everybody the same? Anybody against? And the last, oh my goodness.
I don't make this up, but it happens.
So the next vote is to elect Cheryl Fournier to serve as a member of the board of directors for a 3-year term. All those in favor? Cheryl. The last one, right, is to elect Dawn Pooler, our lovely Dawn, to serve as a member of MEASBO for a 3-year term.
Directors, per our bylaws, can appoint and vote at their annual retreat on our slate of officers. So we need to inform membership of who that slate will be, that they will be voting on June 14th at their retreat. So our president will be Colin Walsh. Our vice president will be Sherry Movie. Our treasurer will be Sherry Proctor. And our secretary will be Dawn Pooler. So that will be the slate of officers for the upcoming year, starting July 1st. And Andrea will be leading us. I see that.
Sorry. I love NASCAR, but it's all good. minutes via email from Joanne. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? The next order of business is to review and approve the treasurer's report that you should have received in your email as well. Do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Words, professional development.
Yes, okay. Just a couple of, well, I've got about 4 things, and hopefully my committee will fill in the blanks if I miss something. The first thing I want to remind everybody of are the upcoming lunch and learns. We've got one on May 14th, where we're going to have a panel of your peers who are experts in year-end closing in their software. So some of them are chuckling. So we will do that on the Zoom, so please hop on, ask your questions. I've seen quite a few questions on both listservs, ours and the departments, so I think that that's a timely topic, hopefully. So if you have questions, if you can't make the lunch and learn, or you have questions you would like to submit in advance so the group can be prepared, that might be helpful. Just shoot me an email, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully this one will go well. I think we're going to focus on the accounting side, and then I was thinking perhaps late in the summer we might do one on setting up staff, setting up payroll, all that stuff for the new school year, and then before year end, calendar year end, we could do sort of a tax thing. So if anyone wants to volunteer for the panel, that would be great. I've got a few participants with each software represented, I think. So that's the first one. The second one is June 4th. I haven't talked to the Department of Labor recently, so let's hope this happens, but it's the paid family medical leave team. So I am hopeful that, because they have stood the team up, and this is not going to be a listening session, this is going to be more helpful than I've been told the listening sessions were to you guys. So that's what we've got scheduled for the next 2. And I'll be sending out reminders anyway with Zoom links. I just needed to get past this meeting, so I'll get those out. Our certification program, the committee is reviewing that. We took a look at the curriculum and we found a few things that might not be as relevant now, and some things that we're missing in the curriculum. So we as a committee are working through that, and hopeful that we'll have that solidified by the end of May so that I can take it to the board retreat and have the board bless it, and then start us up in the new fiscal year with a new curriculum and a new process. I've had some questions from folks that want to get going on it. So hopefully we'll have some news on that. And again, I'll be blasting you with email messages about that. The regional groups, the committee developed some criteria for team leaders. Again, I'm going to take that out to the board and see if we can get that going next year as well, so that we can do some more targeted pockets of PD for folks. So that one's been a little tough to get some traction on. I'm sending out the list of responsibilities to people that have asked so that you can see it's really not that much. I can help. As I have shown this morning, I'm not very good at the administrative tasks, but I can help somehow. So I forgot a whole packet for Andrea, so oh well. And at the board retreat, we will set meetings for next year. So we'll set the in-person meetings with locations, not probably the exact building, but at least, Bangor, Portland, Augusta, wherever else. So we'll do that at the board retreat, and then I can get that out so folks can get that on their calendars at least. And then what, again, I'll try to do is fill in the months that we don't meet in person with lunch and learns. So if
If you have any thoughts or any additions or anything like that, just give me a yell. You know how to find me. Questions? Okay, we're good.
Tri-State, anybody want to report on Tri-State? Kelly.
So by default, because Dean didn't come today, who is one of the tri-chairs, our tri-chairs this year are Dean Flanagan, Diane Boucher, and Hollis Cobb. The tri-state team has been working for all year to prepare for this. We had our last meeting last week. We wrapped up. We would love to increase the amount of Maine participation. I heard that we're not the shining star, even though it's being held in our state this year. So hopefully we can get more people to sign up. There's still time. It's held May 22nd through 24th at the Holiday Inn by the Bay down in Portland. There's a lot of professional development that happens at these meetings. The thing I like the most is the collegiality and the connections that I make with other people by networking. But we do like to have some fun as well at these events. There is a lobster bake on Peaks Island, and if you've already signed up, there was a poll sent out yesterday, or I think it was actually at 1 a.m. this morning, maybe.
Yes, it was.
That actually for your choice of whether chicken, steak, or lobster if you are attending. So we'd love to get that back so we can get the count, so we can report to the people putting that on for us. And then also some wellness activities that happen before we go on the lobster bake, so that we can have appropriately sized rooms. So if we could get you to, one, sign up and come, that would be terrific, and two, to actually make those selections, that would be great. And I will just say, we do this every year with Maine, for those who don't know, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont at Tri-State. That's what makes up Tri-State ASBO. Next year we'll be in New Hampshire right around the same week. Usually it's a week earlier. So if you're working with your boards or whatever to set up your annual budget meetings and your votes, keep that in mind moving forward.
Remind us again of the deadline for registration, Kelly.
Adam, is it in the book?
Adam.
No, Jamie told me May 6th.
Okay, well, there you go.
Thank you.
Jamie told her May 6th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have some of the brochures. I think I have one left, but I've got a whole box in my car, thanks to Colin. And, or I also scanned the brochure, it's on our website, so.
Or you can visit tristateasbo.org.
All
there as
kinds
well.
of ways.
Thank you. So the next order of business is the Dave Holden Award, and I'm going to let Joanne take that from here.
Thank you. So the Dave Holden Award is something that ASBO has presented for many years. We have a list of previous winners on our website, and it's about not just excelling in your career, but support of other business managers, support of this organization, community service, and it's chosen by nomination by your peers. So this year's award winner has been a faithful ASBO member for many years, including most recently as an officer. She serves on our legislative committee. She records all of our meetings. She's always an active participant in meetings and on the school finance list. She was extremely helpful to me when I came on board. She helped me with the software and taught me how to get all those wonderful messages out to you guys all the time. She helps new people in the field. I know she just helped someone recently who was out on medical leave. And her person that nominated her said, and she is a heck of a nice person, which she is. So Dave Holden Award goes this year to Sherry Moody. So Sherry will get a plaque. I will get that ordered, and I should have it by the board retreat for you. So congratulations and thank you.
Order of business is the vendor spotlight. So we're going to give DeVivo Bus Sales a few minutes. And as a reminder, DeVivo Bus offers new and used vehicle sales, service parts and tools, England. DeVivo has launched a new dealership location in Falmouth in order to better serve Maine clients. So welcome to DeVivo.
I'm trying to figure out if we can get the screen working or not.
Be online. Technology knows so much. See if we can find someone to help.
I think Joanne just went to go try and find somebody. We're halfway there. I'm Matt Kearns. I am the school bus sales manager for DeVivo Bus Sales. Hopefully my mouse will work. I'm gonna have to stand here. All right, I guess we're advancing this way. So we are a division of DATCO. I put that way down here. Some of you may know our name from doing school bus bids and whatnot. We're a very diverse company. Our sales division sells the IC bus product, Collins school buses, as well as Sunset vans, which are Ford Transit or Dodge ProMaster vans, as well as TCI mobility vans, so wheelchair accessible vans. We're also a capacity truck dealer, which doesn't really matter to you guys, but those are yard trucks for distribution centers. We also own a tow truck dealership, New England Truck Masters. We have collision centers in Massachusetts and Connecticut. We are a tool distributor, and we also are a Thermo King truck refrigeration and Penguin trailer, which is refrigerated tow-behind trailer dealership. So we do a lot of things. Probably the school bus and vans are probably what would be most relevant to this group. Our main office is in New Britain, Connecticut, but our newest location is at 110 Gray Road in Falmouth. We do parts service from that location, as well as we will do pickup delivery of vehicles. We are, like I said, we are an IC bus dealership, but if you have a bus of a different brand that you need worked on, we can still do that. Bluebird, Thomas, we can still get the work done for you. So just a little bit about myself. This is my 23rd year in school transportation. I did 17 years with RSU 57 as a van driver, bus driver, driver trainer, transportation director. I also served as transportation director for RSU 21 and worked with Don previously. And this is about 3.5 years at DeVivo Bus Sales. I started as a sales rep, went into their electric bus specialist, and now the school bus sales manager. So we come here our primary focus is to sell vehicles, but I also try and be a resource for everybody, full scale for transportation. So I always tell the customers that we work with, if you have a question that may just be related to operations and transportation, please don't hesitate to ask. So, because I want to be there as a resource and just help build that relationship with everybody. So choosing the right bus for your operation, this is one of the things we talk about with customers a lot. Safety features, LED warning lights, strobe lights. The anti-pinch door sensors are new, so starting with buses built January 1st of 2025, they will have to be required to have anti-pinch door sensors. So basically, the doors don't shut all the way, child's backpack is caught, or the child is caught in the doors, there'll be an alert that comes up to alert the driver so that they don't drive away and drag a student. Crossing gates on the front bumper have been required since 2021. Driver comfort is a big thing. I know we all are hard up for drivers. Everybody is looking for bus drivers. So we talk about ergonomics. If your driver's comfortable driving, you're more likely to retain them, and hopefully they'll show up to work. So things like tilt and telescopic steering, adjustable pedals, again, LED headlights for when they're driving in the dark. A lot of our bus drivers start very early in the morning. Driver's seat with armrests. This was a huge thing when I was a driver. My bus didn't have armrests, and I just leaned over, I felt like all day long on my steering wheel. Add an armrest to the seat, and they can sit back in the seat, and it makes a huge difference on their backs. Capacity and configuration, we do small buses down to like 12 passengers, or large capacities up to 83, depending on what your school needs. Do you need a bus with a wheelchair? You can do it in a full-size school bus, and a mini school bus. Do you need integrated child seats? Do you do pre-K transportation and you want to be able to utilize that bus for more than just the pre-K? The integrated child seats they're made so they can flip down out of the seat back to be used when those students are on the bus, and then stored back in the seat back when you have older students on and want to utilize that seat as well. And then other options to think about, underbody storage. Do your buses go on trips where they need storage for athletics? First light safety signs, those are a big thing that have started up recently. Those are the really bright LED lit up school bus signs. They also offer illuminated stop signs. Just another great safety feature on your buses, and air conditioning. I know a lot of people don't think we need air conditioning in Maine, but it's starting to really stay warm in September, October, and get warm in June. So potentially something to consider. Our new bus that has just started rolling off the production line this year, our redesigned bus does come standard with driver dash AC. So that's a standard feature now. So that's just showing you our redesigned bus and redesigned driver's area. So now we do have standard dash AC, and just talking about ergonomics, everything's reachable for the driver, so they don't have to be stretching and reaching to turn it on and off switches, set the parking brake, shift the bus, do anything like that. So now just kind of shifting into like transportation operations and just talking about that. I tried not to make this whole presentation about sales for you guys. So just thinking about putting my transportation director hat back on, student safety and behavior. Student safety training is key in the event of an emergency. We want to make sure that our transportation directors and team are making sure that they're doing their training with their students, and that those students understand the importance and compliance to those safety rules. Supporting bus drivers when issues arise. I will tell you as a transportation director, there are so many drivers that don't feel supported. Whether they express it or not, they talk about it when they're amongst their peers, and I hear it out in the field. So making sure that your drivers feel supported when issues arise, before issues arise, is really key in that retention, in that hiring. Because the student behavior does directly impact. Again, you hear it outside. You're trying to hire drivers, and all you hear other people telling you about how bad the kids behave. And then, who wants to come work for your school when everybody's saying the kids are awful? So, behavior directly impacts your hiring. And then you have those drivers that they've been here for 30 years, and they may drive 10 more years if they really wanted to. But if the behavior has gone downhill, they may be like, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore. So definitely something to think about in your aspects of transportation. I know most of you oversee transportation. This is a big thing. I know I've heard in some districts where they tell us we don't have money for PD. And I know you guys talk about PD for yourselves a lot. So ensuring that continued funding for PD for transportation department employees is in your annual budgets is really, really important. The MAPT conferences, so the Maine Association for People Transportation, does do safety conferences that you can count towards their professional development. We do 6 regional safety conferences. We do 4 in April and 2 in June. Tim and myself are both members of MAPT. Tim is the vendor rep. So we just did 4 conferences. We did 1 at Bonnie Eagle, 1 in Brunswick, 1 at Mount View in Thorndike, and 1 at Mount Blue in Farmington. And then we will go to Caribou and MS 8037 in Harrington in June. And then in July, we have a statewide safety conference. This year, it will be held at the Augusta Civic Center. So various topics from speakers all around the country, and then a trade show there. So again, these regional safety conferences are, I'd say, free. They're included in your MAPT membership that most of you are paying to be a member of. So all your staff have available training, and it's usually 8 hours worth of training. So on that same topic, when you're submitting your EFT 21 safety and training reports in NEO, you are required to have, your transportation employees are required to have 16 hours of training, documented training every year. The reference is Code of Main Regulations, 0571 CMR Chapter 81. That report you do every year, guarantee some people are probably fudging that report. But it is required, 16 hours of training. And it should be documented in case you were ever asked about. So it does state each student, as part of that training, it's driver training and student training. So the student training portion, each student transported to or from home school and related events in a school bus must be instructed on riding and safety practices, proper loading and unloading techniques, and proper street crossing to and from the school bus stops. So along with this, you are also required to do evacuation drill practices twice a year, once each semester. I always encouraged, or we always scheduled it in my districts to do it in October during School Bus Safety Week, and then the week before April vacation. That was kind of always my standard that we did, kept it that same way every year. We never forgot. And you want to make sure you document your evacuation drills. We always had a form, date, location, it's usually the school, bus route or number that the evacuation drill was done on, grade levels, elementary school, middle school, high school, number of students that participated, the type of evacuation. Did you go out the front door? Did you use the back door? Did you have them do a split evacuation where they go half out the front, half out the back? And then the driver signing off on it. And so you want to retain those records. We always retain them for 7 years, I believe, before we threw them out. So very important when it comes to your state reporting that you're getting your 16 hours of driver training and your annual student training. So, popular topic now, electric school buses. A lot of positive and negatives going around about those. Just wanted to talk briefly about funding opportunities. Coming up very soon now, we should have the 2024 EPA Clean School Bus Grant Program, which they talk about as round 4 of funding. I believe it's going to be about $600 million for this round of the grant program. And then applications are open now, just as of Tuesday, for the 2024 EPA Clean Heavy Duty Vehicles Grant Program, which is for school buses and other class 6, 7, 8 commercial vehicles. Things to think about planning for the future: EPA greenhouse gas 2027 emissions. There's going to be more restrictions on diesel emissions. It's going to require increased costs from the factory for diesel motors, as well as required extended warranties. The emissions restrictions are going to require more operational costs. So some of you may or may not know about something that's called DEF fluid that goes into your buses that helps with emissions. You're going to, from what I understand right now, you probably have to fill the tank every time the bus goes about 3,000 miles. When these regulations hit in 2027, you're probably going to have to fill that daily. That's the amount of fluid that's going to have to be used. So increased cost to diesel engines is going to happen. I will be honest, the cost of electric buses is not going to go down. It's not going to go down. They say it's going to go down. It's not going to go down. So funding is key when you're looking at electrification. If it's right for you, your district, to every customer I say, an electric school bus may not fit all of your routes, but there's at least one. So if you can use grant money to try it out and see if it works, even just on one bus route, these are the opportunities to use. The funding amounts continue to go down. We started at $395,000 per bus in round 1 of clean school bus funding. Round 4 is going to be $345,000. So we expect it to go down probably to about $295,000 in round 5. Pros and cons of electric buses. Of course, pros, 0 emissions, no tailpipe emissions. Quiet ride, driver comfort, reduced maintenance costs, and reduced fuel costs. Cons, of course, being limited range. Most school buses can only go about 135 miles. I will note we offer a 200-mile range battery pack. Upfront costs for bus and charging infrastructure, again, going back to the funding to help offset those costs. Of course, you have driver hesitancy. Nobody wants to drive the electric school bus. I can tell you, once they get in it, you'll probably have people that will fight over wanting to drive the electric school bus. Take my word for it. And then there's always community resistance. So education and the right partnerships are most important for a successful deployment. Education is really key. There's always going to be questions. That's part of my job, is to help answer those questions, calm those concerns. And I'll be honest with you, if I know it's not right for your application, I'm not going to try and sell you that bus, because you know what? It's going to be a headache for all of us. And I don't want that as much as you don't want that. But if we can look at your routes, we can look at your bell times, we can look at all that stuff and say, you know what, maybe it works on 1 or 2. And we can bring that into our community and say, look, we're giving it a shot. We got funding for it. It's not costing us any more than our diesel bus would have cost us that we purchased this year. Maybe give it a shot. But education is key. I will definitely be that resource for you. And just a little bit about what we've done so far with electric buses. So we are the leader in New England for electric bus sales. We applied for round 1 of EPA Clean School Bus funding. We did 24 applications. That round was a lottery system. So we put in 24 applications. We got 4 awards for customers in Maine, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. That totaled 51 electric buses. EPA round 2, the grant program, we did 1 big application for 5 school districts across Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we have been awarded 85 electric school buses in total between those 5 schools. And for round 3, we have 11 applications in for customers in Maine, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. And I will say we just had no interest from customers in New Hampshire or Vermont, or we would have put those in too, because we do cover all 6 New England states and Rhode Island. So that award is pending. Hoping we hear about it. They said April 2024, but it's the government, so they'll do it when they want to. But we put in for 52 electric buses there, so we're hoping we get a good portion of that. So, and then, yeah, like I said, round 4, we're ready to help you get funding if you want it. But we are very active in getting funding for people. We've been very lucky in our awards. We work really close with the EPA, and I think that helps us. When we put in our applications, they see that we are right into it. So yeah, if you're looking for information on funding, let us know. And that's all I had. Again, I'm Matt Kearns. I'm the school bus sales manager. That's my information up there. And we have Tim Clark in the back. He is our school bus sales representative. He covers Maine and New Hampshire. So that's all I have for everybody. That's DeVivo Bus Sales.
Curiosity, how many people here in their fleet have electric buses or have a plan to get electric buses? Thank you. So Matt, while you're standing there,
Sure.
you were going over the specifications of buses, and
Yep.
I know for me, one of the big headaches is cameras. We have 4 cameras in all of our buses, and we have cameras on the outside.
Yep.
Watching video has turned into a full-time
Oh, yeah.
position in the bus garage. Are we alone? Is anybody else having the same kind of issues with watching cameras to see Johnny pinch Sally? And
It's a full-time job. That's what it's
Yeah.
become. We do work with some camera manufacturers that instead of having to pull the hard drive from each bus, they can download the video wirelessly from the bus. It just has to like pull up next to the building, and then they can download the video and the bus can pull away instead of having to do the swap out, swap in all the time. So that is an option to help save a little bit of time in terms of the viewing of it. I know most camera manufacturers make like an event marker button where the driver can press the button and it will mark the camera. So they know when they're looking at it, there'll be a big green line on the timeline and there'll be a little red line. So you know where to kind of go, and it's about this time. So you're not watching 30 minutes of video, you're watching a couple minutes of video. So adding the event marker is pennies.
And that's on certain video camera systems?
I think
or is-
most of them offer it
that?
now, yeah. REI, Seon, Provision, I think those are some of the three of the bigger ones.
Yep.
But event marker is big, and it just goes right in the dash, and the driver can just press it, and it will help narrow down to that time frame. So
I'm gonna reach out to you. I know
definitely
that
something to consider.
it's it's becoming a full-time job for somebody in our transportation office to constantly monitor
Yeah,
those videos.
it's a lot, and I mean,
Anybody else having those issues in their transportation department, or are we the only ones with naughty kids? Okay. Questions for Matt since while he's here?
so we sell the IC bus or the International bus brand. Yep.
And for the electric bus, one of the biggest conversation pieces we had is replacement batteries and the cost of them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an estimate on what that was, because we have not gotten a clear answer on it?
Sure, so I would say if you had to replace a full battery pack outside of warranty today, you're probably about $50,000. I will say that the warranty on our bus is for the battery pack and the battery thermal management system, which heats and cools the batteries, keeps them at their ultimate, their temperature that they like, 70 degrees, 8 years, 175,000 miles. So you get full coverage. It's not prorated. If the battery dies at 7 years and 10 months, still fully covered. I will say that in each battery, there are battery packs. So there is the potential that a smaller pack of batteries within the big battery could fail, and you can just replace those sections, those packs of batteries inside. So we have not yet seen a full pack not hold the charge anymore. We have seen instances where we've had to replace under warranty the smaller packs within those batteries. But yeah, for a full pack right now, outside of warranty, about $50,000. So,
Other questions for Matt?
hi.
Could you give me like a price range of like the low end of an electric bus, this is one that has all the bells and whistles?
So you're probably in for a full-size bus, so big bus like this, you're probably $390,000 to $400,000. The options really, when it comes down to this bus, if you exclude air conditioning, which is a big cost, are fairly minimal in the grand scheme of the $400,000 bus. We do also offer a smaller Type A electric bus. The max capacity on that right now is only 12. It's on a Ford E-Transit chassis, and that's probably around $250,000. So,
Is there an electrical infrastructure upgrade that needs to happen potentially in order to charge the bus, or?
yeah, so it would depend on the type of charging you're looking for. If you want to do slower charging, but just charge overnight, there may not be as much, so they call that level 2 charging. If you wanted to go with fast charging, where you had to charge the bus in the middle of the day, there would probably be some upgrades. It would depend on what availability you still have in your panel and on that transformer that's closest to where you want to put it.
Does the grant assist with that at all, or is it strictly just the bus?
So the grant covers, so if you had the, say, $345,000, if you were a priority school district, I did forget to mention that, priority school district, rural, remote, indigenous, $345,000, non-priority school district, about $200,000. But that funding now, it used to be separated, now it's all one pool, so you can use that money in whichever way you want to use it. Initially, in the first round, we did $395,000, it was $375 for the bus and $20 for charging. Then they just decided, going into round two, it's just a pool and you can use it however you want to. I would say we put two EV buses in Collins School District, RSU 57. They got $40,000 towards charging for those two buses. They got their buses for free, didn't cost them a dime. And I think their investment, and he'd probably correct me down to the penny if he was here, was about $55,000. So they got two electric buses and it cost the district about $55,000.
So for me, one of my hesitations is watching in the middle of the winter, there was a really cold snap where everyone in a particular part of the country that had invested in electric vehicles, they were complaining and waiting for hours for their vehicles to charge. Is that a concern here for buses?
So you would have a little bit longer charging time. So if say your bus took 3 hours on a fast charger to charge, it may take 4.5 hours to charge potentially. You will see slightly reduced range when you're using your heat for the entire bus run, probably about 25 to 30% of your range. So that's also something to consider when the bus is going. But when the bus is plugged in and charging and the bus is running, there's that battery thermal management system that's keeping the batteries warm and keeping their range at the best it can be.
And if we're in single-digit numbers, will that affect the amount of charging as well when it gets really cold and it's sub-zero? Because I think that was their issue out there.
It'll definitely impact the time. I don't have the exact numbers, but it will definitely impact the charging length of time that is needed, as well as the range. But the most we've seen, so IC Bus, the manufacturer, they first deployed buses out in British Columbia, Canada. That's where they did their pilot program. And so the max they ever saw was 35% during the really cold weather on their range. So if you're at 135 miles, you'd be just under 100 miles. And it depends on the type of driving that the bus is doing. If it's just doing an in-town route and it's not really going anywhere, I'll be honest, it probably won't have as good of a mileage range as it would if it went on a hilly bus run. Because the bus, if any of you have hybrids or EVs, the bus has regenerative braking. So every time you slow down to make a stop or you're going downhill, the motor in the bus is creating energy in that resistance, and the buses actually aren't using the brakes, and that's putting energy back into the batteries. So it's actually good if the bus goes out on a hilly bus run.
Good to know.
So, which is kind of a lot opposite of what people think. So if we take it out on the highway, we get worse range than if we take it on a back road and we're going up and down hills. So when we take our buses out on tour and show it off to people, I avoid the highway.
And I want to thank you for entertaining our questions. I know
Absolutely.
you didn't sign on for that, but since you were here,
That's why I'm here.
I thought we'd sneak a few in. So if anyone's looking to buy a bus, keep Matt and DeVivo in mind.
Yeah. Or anything transportation operations related to reach
Or
out.
just, transportation questions, call Matt.
I will answer one question. Your new buses do not come with drivers.
Thank you so much. The next order of business this morning is David, is it Brigham or Brigham? Brigham. So if David's ready to go, David, do you need some time to set up a computer or? So David is the MD facilities, facility inventory. That's what you're here to talk about. That's probably not your title.
That is what I'm here to talk
All
about.
right. Your title, David?
I am a school facilities consultant.
Can you speak up? We've got a band blowing over us and it's hard to hear back here.
I will do my best. I need to stand behind here because I have notes. I've never done this talk before, so this is all kind of new to me. So I formulated the notes after talking with Joanne, a couple days ago, and so you're the first guinea pigs if I ever have to do it again, or maybe the last. So my name is David Bridgham. I am a recovering retired school district business manager. I feel your trauma every day. I still have to work through all the stress and everything, the missed deadlines, the downloads that didn't go through. I remember it vividly. I wake up at night, I have sweat, just like you do. And Joanne's part of helping me to recover by getting me back involved with school things. As well as a guy named Scott Brown who said, "Oh, you're retired, you don't have anything to do, so I could use some help doing some things that I know that you know a little bit about." So that's kind of why I'm here. This is actually the second project I've done for the department related to school facilities. And so, I'm going to talk about an inventory. Some of you probably are aware of it. Some of you may not be. First, I'd like to start out with a couple of questions. How many districts in this room have full inventories of all the desks and chairs and equipment and stuff in all of their buildings? There is one.
Well, we have a new school, so we had to do an inventory.
Okay. And so, is there anybody that's using the asset management software module in their ADS or Tyler or whatever software they? Okay, we're not talking about that at all today. I tried for 10 years to do that and get it up and running, and I never could. And so I was just seeing if anybody actually pulled it off. So what I'm here to talk about is an inventory of the actual school facilities, so the buildings that we all house our kids in. And I'm hoping that Joanne got out to you all a copy of a priority notice that went out to all superintendents. It was done in August, and it went out in September, announcing that DOE had secured some funding, and it's federal pandemic money funding, in order to do an inventory of all almost 600 school buildings in the state between September and June 30th of this year. And so for many of you, in fact for most of you, that's kind of old news because your buildings have already been done. Our team met last Monday morning, and as of Monday morning, 490 out of the 598 school buildings that are covered under the inventory had already been done. So most of the ones left that haven't been done, I can tell you there are 5 in Washington County that I'm going to be doing.
May I have your attention, please? All bus students are dismissed. All bus students are dismissed.
Oh, well, I guess we're done. I know I've got 5 in Washington County, in northern Washington County, between Baileyville and Danforth that have to be done, and they're going to be done next couple of weeks. Most of the other ones, I believe, that are done are over in western Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. There are about 100 or so in that neck of the woods, and a few others scattered. I know a couple of island schools haven't been done as well. The purpose of the inventory is to finally, for the department, collect some useful and consistent set of data on each building. And I'll talk a little bit about the history of that effort in a few minutes. The priority notice explains that it's to support an understanding of schools' infrastructure needs in the state and to assist the DOE and the state board in making funding decisions for schools. And so If you recall the latest round of school revolving renovation funds, the highest priority, and I think the only projects funded were priority 1, and they were life and safety needs of school buildings. So things like roofs and HVAC and hazardous materials and school security were the highest priorities. And those are the ones that I think all of the projects that got funded this last time around were on those lists. The issue is that when they receive those applications and they go to review by the school facilities team and then are taken to the State Board of Education's
May I have your
instruction
attention, please?
subcommittee.
All students are dismissed. All students are dismissed.
They want you out of here. And so often these committees are meeting and reviewing these schools, and they have questions about the buildings, and they really don't know a lot about the buildings. Is the school a brick building? Is it a wood building? Is it, how old is it? How many square feet is it? A big school, small school? And often DOE staff aren't as familiar with the buildings as they would like to be as well. And numerous attempts over the last several decades to collect consistent data has been elusive. And so what they decided to do with this money that they received through the pandemic grants, federal money, was put together a team of people who know buildings and are trained the same way and use the same definitions for things. And they armed them with a set of data points that are being used. And this is a paper version. I think you all got it as well. It's about 100 data points for each building. And the team that was assembled to do this, I didn't do all 600 buildings myself. There were 6 of us that went out and were divvied up parts of the state and have been visiting schools all year. That team is people most of you probably are familiar with. One is Valerie Chang. She's an architect that works in the school construction division. If you've ever had a school construction project, revolving renovation fund project, and looking at Adam, who had one while I had one at the same time. How'd that work out for you?
Very well.
Okay. Then you know Valerie. The other 2 people in Scott's office that did this were a lady named Rui Yaley. She used to be the principal at Hamden Academy. She did a big construction project as well, and she is a member of the team that's in Scott Brown's facilities office that reviews construction projects, especially related to the educational programming for new schools. Another member is a guy named Ted Hall, also a former principal, I think in Yarmouth area, who is also retired. He works with Scott's team as well, doing reviews of school applications and revolving renovation fund applications and the suitability in terms of the goals of the whatever funding source is being used. Then the other 3 are non-DOE people that were brought in and have become DOE people. One is me. And then the other 2, one is a guy named David Lewis. He's an architect, used to work for Portland Design Team when they were a Portland Design Team. And he's doing all of the, I think, 19 or 20 or so Portland schools only, because he's based in Portland. And then the one that's really doing the heavy lifting, I think he's got something like 250 of the 500 schools, is a guy most of you know. His name's Ed Ants. He used to be the loss control officer for Maine School Management Insurance Programs. used to go around to all the buildings almost every year, or a select few, or a select bunch every year, and do reviews of the buildings. So he's quite familiar with a lot of the schools in the state, and he's based in southern Maine and did most of York, Cumberland, eastern Androscoggin, and along the coast. He hit the areas where the population is and where most of the school buildings are. I did all of Hancock and Washington counties when I get done. So the reason the department is doing this is they've actually tried for at least 2 decades to try to get consistent data on every school building in the state. And I don't know how many of you were around in the early 2000s, but their first effort at it was pretty sophisticated. They put an RFP out for a contract to obtain some software that would collect data on buildings. It was called, the company that won the contract was called BFA. And if you recall, there was a software program called BFA Software that if you were in facility director or a business manager back in those days, or even if you were the head custodian of a school that was the only school in a district, because in a lot of school unions and AOSs, that's the way it is. The department is a school with a school board, and the facilities manager is the 66-year-old custodian who's been there for 40 years, and he's the person responsible for the building. The downside of that was this software was designed for use by engineers and architects, and it was very difficult to learn. And so bringing in some of these facility staff people who, this is 2001, 2002, computers weren't even that common, and certainly they weren't, they were tied with wire, put together with wires and those things. And the people that were expected to put the data and collect this data and put it into this software weren't familiar with computers, let alone trained to use computer software that was this sophisticated. And so after, I think, a year or so, maybe longer, of training, whoever was in charge, I can't remember the people who were in charge of the department at the time, who they were, they figured out that this isn't going to work, that this data isn't getting in, that what data is getting in isn't what they're looking for, isn't reliable. And there was a lot of frustration at the local level with people who were expected to learn how to use computers first, and then a software program that was very sophisticated, very technical. And so in order to get this data in there, what they decided to do was retain a bunch of architectural engineering firms that had the expertise and the people and the time and wanted the money to go out and contract with every school district in the state to do this. And it came to about, my recollection is somewhere around $6,000 a pop for somebody from Oak Point or Sewell, or there were 6 firms statewide that had the training to do this. And so that's what they did. Districts would contract with one of these companies, an engineer or an architect would come, they'd visit all the buildings in the school, they'd get the data into the software, they'd use that software to produce a hard copy of a report for all of our superintendents for the buildings. And that hardware, the software was actually very good because it contained an RS means estimating system within it that could not only generate a 10-year capital improvement plan, but assign cost to it. So if you were budgeting 3 years after the fact, after the data was in there, you could actually pull up that roof project that's now due to be done and pull up the RS means estimator for your area for that project, and it would cost out that cost, and you could plug that information into your budget. So very useful in that way. The trouble is that about half the districts in the state actually went to the trouble of contracting with these firms to do this, and then a lot of times, once they had that data into their systems, there was nobody in-house that knew how to use the data to keep it updated, and to, as new projects were done in the buildings, to add that data into the thing. So what they ended up doing was having a hard copy of a snapshot of their building at the time in 2003 or 2004 or whenever it was done. A lot of those got shelved, and I know when consolidation happened and I started looking for those in the districts that came together with our districts to consolidate, that people had lost them, people didn't know what I was talking about, people, they just disappeared. The other thing that happened with that program was that the contract was for a set amount of years, and when the contract expired, the state put the program back out to bid with the caveat that whoever won the bid would have to be able to pull all the data that was already in each school system's database into whatever program they did. And I cannot remember who won that bid, but they were unable to do it. And of course, this is all proprietary software, and I suspect there were some legal issues involved. And so in the end, 7, 8, 9 years after the fact, the state still had no consistent, reliable data on all the school buildings in the state. So then what they did in 2010 is they sent out to all of our superintendents a one-page form that looked like this. And it said 2010 school facilities inventory. And it was sent to all the superintendents, and it was pencil and paper. They said, okay, we understand not everybody's up to speed, and the people that do that. And it was pretty simple. What was the school? Where is it? How many? When was it built? How many additions? When were they? How many square feet were they? Are the renovations? What grades? Have you ever done a space inventory? Do you have an annual maintenance plan? Do you have a 10-year capital improvement plan? Just basics. What's a structure? What's a water supply? Sewage, heating, electrical source, ventilation, sprinkler. So they did this in pencil and paper form. We all got it. We all sent it out to our custodians and our facilities managers. I was a custodian and facilities manager, as well as the business manager and the bus manager and the technology manager and all kinds of other managers at the time. So I did these for all our buildings. That's why I have on this one Sumner Memorial High School that doesn't exist anymore. Well, this particular building doesn't exist anymore. We filled those out, we sent those back to the state, and they had reasonably consistent data, except that only about half the districts in the state actually did it. So that's kind of part of the issue. So and it's generally the hardest for the districts that were having the hardest time complying were the ones that were single school districts, that the one person in charge of facilities was the guy that's been there for 40 years, and he sees a piece of paper, and I don't do paper, sorry. And so, and there was really no follow-up on it as well. But they then reissued the same thing in 2014, again, to try to collect pretty much exactly the same data. same people that did it in 2010 did it again, did it all in, and the ones that didn't. And so their latest effort after that was in NEO. So if you remember around 2017, there came a NEO module called the Facilities Maintenance Module in NEO. It was basically collecting the same data that were collected on the pencil and paper forms that they had filled out. And then in addition, there was an expectation that as new roofs got put on, as windows got replaced, as maintenance got done, as paving got done, that this additional information was going to keep being added. It would become a living document. That if it wasn't updated, I think the issue was you couldn't get funding for things like revolving renovation funds or school construction projects. And so, so a lot of people dutifully took their information and started putting it in NEO. And if you remember NEO back in those days, it was like put in a little bit of data and then watch the little circle spin. And then you can go get a cup of coffee, maybe get lunch, and have a meeting with somebody, and come back and it's still spinning. Remember that? It's kind of like the EFT 21 that Matt was talking about. That's how it used to be back with those reports too. And so that was frustrating. And if the expectation is you're a facilities manager or your school's custodian is going to do that, guess what? Didn't get done. And so in the end, the same districts that always follow through and do the things that they're supposed to do did it, and the ones that had trouble complying and frustrations and all the other issues, and sometimes it was issues that they had no control of, didn't get it done, and then the state didn't do it. So, hence our team. And so we have gone all over the state. We've done it. There was a questionnaire I explained. This questionnaire turned from a one-page thing to a 4-page of 100 questions because there were other agencies that said, hey, I hear you've got some money that you're going around to all the schools, and we'd love to collect some information about schools as well. And so one of those people was the School Safety Center, who were interested in collecting information on how secure schools are and how prepared they are for some kind of an intruder incident or something to that effect. Another office that was interested in school buildings was the State Fire Marshal's office. The State Fire Marshal's office had no idea which schools had sprinkler systems, which schools didn't, which schools were alarmed with smoke and fire, and which ones were or were not, or had one or the other. So they have a little section in the questionnaire. And then the other group was Alpha One, who I believe have a lot of money or have some money from the pandemic, and are interested in ADA issues in schools, as are the School Renovation Fund applications as well. So they have a bunch of questions in there as well. So what started out as I think it was supposed to be originally when I first talked to Scott, a 55 or 60 page or 60 question data point turned into 100 or so. And so quickly I will kind of go over what we do when we visit a school, and then I'll take any questions you have. And I'm trying hard to, Joanne said I have 45 minutes. I don't know how I'm doing, but I know this isn't a 45-minute talk, so I'm stretching it out as much as I can. But maybe you'll have a longer break between me and the next group than Joanne planned on. Anyway, when I go to a building, and I think we all do it pretty much the same way, I've I've already talked to the superintendent, so the superintendents, principals, hopefully the facilities director already know I'm coming and what time I'm coming and what day I'm coming. I pull into the parking lot, and the first thing I'm looking for is there a separate drop-off for the buses and the cars? And how many parking spaces are there? And how many of those parking spaces are designated as handicapped? You're supposed to have one handicap space for every 25 parking spaces in your parking lot. And if there are handicapped designated spots, are they marked with both a blue sign and paint, striped paint on the ground? Is there a way for the car drop-off and the bus drop-off? Do they both have the handicap parking lots, and do they both have egress through without going up over the curb to get to the front of the building? I look at the building, I'm looking whether the roof is pitched or if it's flat. I'm looking at the siding of the building, see what the masonry or what the siding is, wood, vinyl, masonry, closet, something like that. I'm looking around the edges to see where the cameras are. See if there are exterior cameras. And then I'm looking at the entrance to the building to make sure if there's a walkway, there are ramps up on the walkway, and how far a wheelchair person would have to go from that ramp up to get to the front entrance of the building. I look at where the walkway to the building goes in the door to see if it's flush, or if there's a ramp, and if there's a ramp, is it 36 inches high, does it have a rail? As I go in the front door, I'm looking to see, again, if there's cameras, how do I get in that front door? Can I just walk in, or do I have to push a buzzer? If I have to push a buzzer and they let me in, am I in an enclosed vestibule where both sides are locked? And this is where you often see that a vestibule is designed to have two sides locking, but you can just walk in the first door before you actually have to interact with somebody in the office, and then they let you in, or maybe it's vice versa, where you get locked in, and then you just open the second door before you interact with the office. I look at where the office is. I look at whether the glass on the office has little tags on it, marks that indicate that it's safety glass. I love to talk to the school secretaries. They're the best people in the world. They give us lots of information. I ask them if they have camera systems inside, and if they do, can I come around and look and see how many cameras you have? And I kind of take a recording of the number of interior and exterior cameras. I usually first sit down with the principal, because there's a section in here that wants to know what the principal thinks of their building in terms of, is there enough space for a whole list of programs? Is there enough space for your special ed program? Do you have a laboratory space? Do you have maker space? Do you have an adequate cafeteria? Do you have an adequate kitchen? Do you have an adequate phys ed space? All the educational programs. Then I asked to see the facilities manager or the custodian, and they're also my favorite people. And so usually it's a 45 or so minute walk around the building, looking at the corridors. I'm looking to see what kind of alarms are on the ceiling. I'm looking to see what kind of camera systems there are. Are the alarms smoke, or are they fire, or are they both? Yet water fountains, one of the questions they want to know, or one of the things the ADA people want to know, and the question's kind of awkward, but it's, you want to know if you have both high and low water fountains. And so you go to a K-8 school, they have the low ones for the kindergarten ones, they have higher ones for the 8th grade ones. That's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is, do you have any of those newfangled ones that everybody got during the pandemic that have both a high and a low on one unit with a water bottle filling station on the side? And if you do, Is it recessed into the wall or does it stick into the corridor? I have to record that type of information on your water fountains. I look at your HVAC systems. Do they have heat recovery, or are they just straight air handlers? Are they energy recovery as well? Are they units that go along the wall, or are they the kind that are in the ceiling? I look at your heating systems, and they're interested in how old the heating systems are. Often I get people say, oh, our heating system is 5 years old in a 30-year-old building, and it's great, but what they're looking for is how old are the piping and the fixtures? Are they still the original 30-year-old fixtures? If that's the case, I need to record that there's a 30-year-old heating system, and it's great you replace those furnaces, that's maintenance, but the heating system's 30 years old. I look at, I'm looking at your classrooms, I'm looking at whether there's the flooring, the ceilings, materials, the type of walls that you have, and those types of things. What I'm trying to make clear with superintendents and principals when I go in is what I'm not looking for is whether your has been inspected, or whether your fire extinguishers have recent tags on them, whether your ladders are suitable, whether the plugs are broken off on your projectors so that the teachers can plug them into two-hole sockets. I'm not looking for any of that. And often when I'm there, people think I'm at ANTS and that they're going to get some kind of a report that they're going to have to then go spend a lot of money and fix a whole bunch of things. We don't do that when we do these inspections. This is to collect data only. And I even get people who say, oh man, you're not going to write me up on that. No, I don't write. I don't write up anybody. So I thought if any of us have not come to your school and we do show up, just let your principals and your custodians know that we're not trying to make extra work for them. They're not going to have to fix anything or spend a lot of money on something, and we're certainly not going to try to, although we might point it out, that fire extinguisher really should be inspected. We're not there to do those types of things. So I'm losing my voice, so why don't I stop, and do anybody have any questions? Adam?
So where will the data go after your teams have collected all of it?
Good question. So we are, and one of the reasons you're glad that I'm doing this and you're not is this is going into a module in NEO. And NEO hasn't improved all that much, although it doesn't spin as much as it used to spin. But it is kind of frustrating to get this data into the system once we've collected it. The expectation originally was they provided us with a little iPad, and when we were first all trained, the expectation was that we were going to go around with this iPad, and I didn't mention, but the other thing I do when I go there is I take pictures of your buildings, pictures of your students, and generally not pictures of the outside, but not pictures of the inside, but pictures of the outside, usually the front entrance at least, and maybe some other ones. And then the expectation was that then you're going to go into the NEO module on your laptop, and you're going to complete this as you're walking around the building. And because of some shortcomings with NEO and issues with connectivity and other things, we decided that's not going to work. So we take, most of us, all of us, take our little paper forms and we walk around and do it on paper, and then we go back to our offices and put the data in. So yes, in addition to the facilities management maintenance module, the NEO, there is a new module that you all can't see yet, but I can, that says school facilities inventory. So my understanding is that this data is going into that module. It will be used by DOE and the state board first in gaining an understanding of funding decisions, for funding decisions, but that that module eventually will be provided to all superintendents so that they can, like they do with any other module in NEO, decide who needs to see it and assign access to it. At our last meeting of the team, which was last Monday morning, I think I mentioned, we did discuss how this information is going to be vetted by the individual districts before it's provided to, especially the State Board of Education. They haven't talked about how they haven't decided, or there's been no final decision on how that's going to be done, whether it's going to be opened up for superintendents and facilities directors to see and then comment on, or whether a paper copy of it is going to be available to them to review. Because what we all know that have done this is there's information that a lot of school districts, when they find out we're coming, they'll have the form filled out in advance. And everybody's proud of their schools and of their work, and nobody wants to think that there are shortcomings with their work or their buildings in any way. And so you often get questions that are answered in a way that doesn't reflect what the people who are asking the question are looking for. So sometimes what I see on those forms and what I observe are two different things, and I'll give you a common one. A common one is one of the questions asked principals, do you have gender-neutral bathrooms and locker rooms? And I've gotten more than one school principal who said, well, our locker rooms are gender-neutral because when we have basketball games, the opposing team uses one locker room and our team uses the other locker room. And then when for the girls' game and then the boys' game, and then the same thing happens. But if the locker rooms say girls and boys on them, they're really not gender neutral. And if they don't have the stalls that are floor to ceiling, so that they're truly private and they're not really gender neutral. And so I will put down that they're not gender neutral, and sometimes people take offense when I say something different than what they say. And usually I just shut up and change the answer. So they're often going to see some information that they didn't, it's different than what they put down if they put the form down in advance. I actually prefer that they don't try to fill out the form in advance, that they just wait for me to show up. But everybody tries to be helpful, and they try to get me in and out of there as quickly as they can, because they really have better things to do. And I understand that, because I was there. There's another organization that is going to take this data, back to Matt's question, called the Maine Policy and Research Institute. And they're going to be a group that looks at this data, and they're going to formulate aggregate data to provide to, I believe, the State Board's construction subcommittee in terms of the school, the needs of school buildings in general. So not looking at individual schools necessarily, but aggregating 60% of our schools are in need of rails or use a different example, 25% of our schools have ramps that aren't 36 inches wide, for instance, or something like that. Then I think beyond that, the module is only for school use. I'm told that none of it's going to be made public. I'm hoping that's the case because in the data section, there's all kinds of places for comments. And I'm thinking there are some comments that I wrote at least that I don't want the public to see. So, told that the public is not going to have this available, that superintendents will have it available and they can choose who and who may not see it. I suspect school boards will be able to see it in time. Yes?
Did I understand you correctly that you will be inputting this information into NEO, so we don't have to go in and update now?
We are putting the information in NEO. So yes, you won't have to ever go in, as far as I know, to NEO. You'll be able to see it, or somebody in your district designated by your superintendent will be able to see it. My understanding is that it may not be able to be changed, although they may request if things change. For instance, if a security issue with your building, say you get a new camera system installed or something like that, and the school didn't previously have a camera system, that you could, that information would be able to be updated in some way.
So would this take the place of the existing maintenance data and information? We won't have to update that anymore?
I do not know that.
Question. We currently have a building on there that the school closed 15, 20 years ago. To delete that building, is there a way to go in and do that? It's been turned back over to the town.
This is in the maintenance module?
Yes.
Don't know that, and I don't know that we, if the school is closed, that we would have in our list of buildings that are, that we do.
There's a spot that you can put in there, and it is in there showing right now that it's not operational, that it won't allow you to delete the building.
That's NEO. I used to put building data into the NEO maintenance module prior to retiring, and so how that worked. My memory of that mostly is the spinning wheel on top. I don't lead a building. I suspect it can be done, but I can't tell you who would be the expert in the department on how to do that either. Okay.
So is this another, like, one-time, or is there a plan moving forward to update the information?
So Scott talks about a 3-year update
By the department?
by the department. Yeah, and I just doing it. He asked me what that is.
David, do you know if the reason for doing this is to supplement the 8279 to put additional money through the funding formula for operations and maintenance?
That would be nice.
Is
That would be nice.
Well,
I'm not-
absolutely.
I'm not aware that data is going to be.
So if the policy, you said the policy, that team, I thought they were the ones who usually review 8279 pieces, the funding formula. So I was hopeful. What you were going to tell me is yes, they are reviewing that part.
And it may be that they are.
Sounds like it would be a good tool for predicting schools that are going to end up on the list, right, for replacement.
Right. I think that's probably in the back of the mind.
Just out of curiosity, when you said the safety glass, is that ballistic glass or just safety glass?
Safety
Like
glass.
a windshield, right?
Doesn't have to be bullet.
Are there many schools in Maine that have ballistic glass?
They're the newer ones.
We built the new one and we had it, engineered, but our budget was way over, so we had to VE a lot of stuff, and ballistic glass. Caribou,
Yeah.
yep. Ballistic glass went away, unfortunately.
Right, yeah. I did Sumner, same architect shortly thereafter. And we have it.
Yeah, we just actually had it on the gatekeeper, the secretary that, buzzes in.
Yes, that's
Just
where-
her window now, they could have shot out the glass, basically come around. But-
Exactly.
But at least they were gonna give us that one window, but we ended up having to take it out.
No, we, in our project, we were able to keep that. Adam, did you were doing, it was little at the same time, right? Did you get that?
So my memory of that is, I remember the state being hesitant, because we came in and said we'd like it in all these places, and they were, we're not going to do that. I don't recall where they actually ended up putting it.
Yeah, I know for us.
Wasn't a lot.
We had a whole office suite of 2 walls, and all we got it was that section was between the 2 doors of the vestibule.
I think it ended up being similar to that, part of the main office.
Any other questions for David?
I kill enough time?
You did, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming and driving to Bangor this morning and entertaining us.
My pleasure.
We've got a half an hour till lunch, and we need to get the legislative report in, so I need for everybody to take a seat, please. Sorry. I don't have a football voice, but I do have a mother's voice.
There you go.
So Zach, Sherry, I'm not sure who's doing it.
Both of us.
Both of us? Floor is yours.
Who starts?
Yeah, I'll start off, because you want to go through more of that stuff. Hey, folks, if you can't hear me, please raise your hand and let me know, and I'll try to speak up even more. So, we are both schools now taking responsibility over the next few years for those children 3 to 5 receiving services. So that will be a school responsibility moving forward. I don't have the law down to the penny, so I can't tell you exactly how that all transpires, but just know that's coming. And another thing that went through was the support staff wages increase, but it was not the same as the law that was hanging out over here going through committee. Basically, it's starting in 25, or starting in 26, so not this next year, but the year after, July 1st of 25. Your ed techs will have to make 1 1/4 times the state minimum wage, and your other support staff will have to make 1.15 times minimum wage. So that will affect some districts more than others, but those are 2 things that were tucked into the overall spending bill that became law. And one more that's been on my list, because I bought them before they were legal and then had to, do some retraining, was that multi-function school activity buses, now the driver just has to be 21 with 2 years of experience. And that is essentially up to a 15-passenger bus. Beyond that, your driver still needs a CDL license. So for those folks trying to find transportation, and I'm sure those folks in the back can tell you what kind of bus you can get that will qualify under that. Great for field trips and smaller teams, but you still may want to have your own internal processes and not just hand the keys to everybody around. Yes,
Can you say exactly what you just said again?
about,
I was trying to write it down.
okay, a multi-function school activity bus is a
Yes.
bus that
Marshmallows.
meets bus transportation standards, but is not yellow, does not have flashing lights, does not have stop arms, and you can't use it as door-to-door pickup.
Yeah.
Is now you used to still have to have a school bus endorsement to drive one, now you don't. You have to be 21 and have had a license for 2 years. But that's up to 15, and not the larger ones would still require a CDL because of the weight, gross vehicle weight.
Me?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm basically reporting on Joanne's work. She's been excellent tracking the bills that affect schools. And if you can't hear me, raise your hand. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay, good. Just going to run right down the list. There's a lot of legislation that we talked about, and of course, by the end of the session, things change vastly. I'm going to start with 154 regarding special education funding for so-called minimum receiver SAUs. This would increase the minimum special ed adjustment on the ED 279 from 50% to 55% beginning next fiscal year, which is 24-25. It's about $1.1 million, and it would mean that the ED 279s would be rerun with reductions in subsidy to units that do not receive the adjustment. So right now, that's on the appropriations table, which means who knows. Unfortunately, a lot of bills end up on the appropriations table, and if that happens, it may or may not occur. So that's going to be a wait and see, and probably a lot of these, just as an aside, we always end up at the Drummond Woodsum legal law seminar in the fall, and we get a lot more information on this stuff that we're reporting right now.
Sherry,
Yes,
did you say that if that happens, the 279s will be readjusted and all of the non-minimum receivers will lose subsidy for next year?
Yep.
To pay for it?
yeah, and it's about $1 million.
No. Joanne's shaking her head no.
Only the minimum receivers will get new 279s, because they have to put in all the state money, so it won't impact.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Now, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. So there was another act to make Maine schools safer and healthier by increasing the maximum debt service limit. That would raise the debt ceiling to $250 million. It's currently at $150 million. Again, on the appropriations table. Let's see. There was an act to increase enforcement and accountability for wage violations. This is just, it was enacted by the House and the Senate, and it basically clarifies labor law. And it's a whole bunch of requiring the Attorney General to institute civil action to recover unpaid wages, liquidated damages and interest, along with fines. It's for basically if wages don't get paid. And I know all of us are very careful about that. So that one. Do you want to read some of these?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to let Zach go on to the
All right.
next page.
So there was an act to improve transportation in Maine, creating a 2-year inspection sticker for vehicles as opposed to annual. That is voted not to pass by the House and Senate, so that sits. And I don't think that would have affected buses anyways, because there's national transportation safety requirements on those. We have an act to amend pupil counts. So this bill would amend the calculations used for the 279, and it would average the October 1st of the 3 most recent years. So that, again, would affect subsidy based on your student counts. And right now, and that's sitting on the appropriations table. An act to improve behavioral health supports, which is also on the appropriations table. And that's to lower the student to guidance ratio in the ED 279. So that's how that would affect those items. An act to require employers to disclose pay ranges and maintain records of employees' pay history. That means you just have to put it in the, I guess when you're requiring folks to apply for jobs, that's when that would show up. How they would fund that is just additional enforcement for Maine DOL, and that sits on the appropriations table as well. And so all these bills are carrying forward, and the current legislature essentially has until the next legislature is sworn in January to pass these. If they don't, they die a death in the 131st, but that doesn't mean the same people that, you know, most of them get reelected, can't just toss up the same thing on the 132nd. But it would have to go through the process again, I assume, starting January if they don't get passed sometime between now and then.
Okay, there was an LD to support family caregivers by expanding family medical leave, and this would add grandparents and great-grandparents to the whole mix of close family. So that's on the appropriations table. I think everybody and their brother are on the family medical leave list at this point, so why not add a few more? This next bill I find interesting because it could impact especially larger schools regarding reduction and recycling of food waste. So this bill would require schools that generate 2 or more tons per week of food waste and located within 20 miles of an organic recycler to start recycling that food waste. Our school actually had a really interesting conversation, and we ended up contacting a local organics recycler, and so we are currently recycling our food waste. And it really was way easier than I thought it was going to be. They just come, I don't know, twice a week and pick up the containers of food waste. And of course, our school is a single school, so it's not quite as big of a crisis. So it is something to think about in the event that your school has to comply with this new law, which would take place July 1 of 2026. This is on the appropriations table. 1064 was the act to increase minimum teacher salary to $50K. This is on the appropriations table. It would be slated to start the phase-in in 26-27. The fiscal impact would not be until 27-28 because the state would pick up the first year. Based on everything that's going on in schools and salaries, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see this pass at some point in the not too far distant future. Would you like to start with this?
Where are you at?
Top of the
Right
page.
there.
We're getting there.
Another side item in the legislative world is that the Federal Department of Labor has changed the exemption amount that people exempt salaries and you don't have to track overtime. I believe it gets 43,000 now, and it'll go to 58 in 25. Teachers are exempt from that calculation, but you may have other salaried people like transportation directors or bus garage managers or something that don't fall under that teacher rubric, that you'll have to watch those wages. Student hunger and nutrition through free milk in schools, that sits on the appropriations table as well. Long-term disability coverage available to public employees, and another one on the appropriations table. And that would be 100% state share is what they're saying. And it has to do with Maine PERS long-term disability. There's a carryover approved of an act to authorize general fund bond issue to recapitalize the school revolving renovation fund. And then there's another one that is an act to require school identification cards to include a telephone number of a suicide hotline deemed to be insignificant cost. And it looks like that one passed. It's Public Law 2023, Chapter 561. So you're going to have to look at your ID badges, and that'll be a requirement, and I assume the DOE will have something will come out about how to address that.
LD 1376 was an act to increase state minimum wage to $15 per hour. It increases the minimum wage to 15 initially and then annually by COLA. It's on the appropriations table, and Joanne writes, it may have a ripple effect on LD 974. So, and of course, LD 974 was the bill 125% and 1.15%. Well, actually, the original was 150% of minimum. So yeah, if that did go through, it would certainly have an impact on hourly wages of our ed techs and support staff. LD 1376 is the one for the $15 per hour. And that is on the appropriations table. Let's see. I don't know. There is one to provide grants to promote innovative learning strategies. And that is a $2 million impact to the state, and this is also sitting on the appropriations table. An act to respect and protect the right to food. It contains a provision that would add Maine food economics curriculum to schools. Language is may, not shall. And this is also on the appropriations table. Almost
May I
done.
have your attention, please? All buses have arrived. Your attendance. All buses. Complete your attendance. Thank you.
Again, a shout out to Joanne because she will be posting this little Excel sheet on the ASBO website afterwards, so you don't have to write furiously as we talk. We're just trying to put things in your mind out there. An act to provide grants for schools that contract social work and family therapy services is on the appropriations table. Be part of the Maine Care Seed local share, if that goes through. Act to amend the laws governing motor vehicles, that's 2072, that's the one that did pass, that I mentioned about the activity buses was one piece of transportation legislation that had a bunch of other things not quite school related in there. The supplemental budget was 2214, and that's what did pass. DOE commission to study school construction policy and funding. That's placed on the study table. And I believe they're supposed to be reaching out to us, or no?
Yeah, they'll reach out if it passes. So that committee has legislative members on it, and that's why it's on the legislative study table, because the legislative office has to pay them, obviously, to travel to the meetings, unlike the rest of us. So, but if that gets cleared off the study table, we are named in that bill and can appoint a member from the organization. So.
Okay. There's MEPRI review of EPS and GPA, and that one also passed. So that is to include, there's a report due to the legislature by 3/15/2025, which will be next year, and they're supposed to include some school business managers in that as well.
That's just the funding that we are receiving. I don't think that's,
Nope, I think that's it.
I think that's it.
If you have any questions, I will do the best with our awesome limited knowledge to help you out. Yes.
Has there been any talk about, like, our salary scales have a grade from Ed Tech 1, 2, and 3? Has there been any talk about how they're going to establish a grade between those for the 125%?
Nope. Our understanding is the minimum salary you can offer someone called an ed tech is 1.25 of minimum wage.
So an Ed Tech will be making 1, will be making the same as an Ed Tech 3?
That's up to you and your bargaining units. All they're doing is setting the floor. You can go as high as you want.
Go ahead.
Where do we find the updated language percentages? Because everything is still showing 150 and 125.
So it's in the actual budget, which is the public law. What number was it? 214?
I think.
Which is about a 293-page public law, give or take. And that was section G, I believe, in there. So if you get on that, it was page,
Oh, 2214. It's Public Law 2214,
yep, and I.
or LD 2214.
And I believe it was about page 53 was was that piece, if I can remember, as I scratched notes furiously yesterday. 153, sorry.
Section G.
Joanne, the enrollment bill, is that going to go, is the proposal to go from a 2-year?
Year average of October 1 or the most recent October 1, whichever is greater.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That will be an aid to those folks that have some declining enrollment, or because it'll allow you to average that over the past few years, so you don't see those quick drops.
Right, that was introduced by a legislator from Washington County, and I think that's exactly what's going on. They've got some serious declines, and they're trying to buffer.
Is there anyone not?
I'd call ours flat. In Yarmouth.
279 for now. You can ask the legislator about introducing a bill. Well, we figure anyway, but. And that's been talked about with your one law.
All right, well, thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you.